Welcome to the Heartland Journal's Tennessee podcast with your host, Steve Abramowitz, editor-in-chief of heartlandjournal.com.
Howdy, y'all. Welcome back to the show. I'm Steve Abramowitz, and this is the Heartland Journal podcast. If you like what you hear, please subscribe and pass it around. We only grow with your help. Thanks for doing it. On this show, we are focusing on our nation today with always an interesting person making a positive change in our community, where I interview people who are making an impact and are lovers of truth. Today, we are talking with special guest Tim Floyd. Timothy Fitzpatrick Floyd is a former American college basketball coach, most recently the head coach of the University of Texas at El Paso. He was formerly the head coach of several teams in the NCAA and the NBA. Floyd is also known as the coach of the Chicago Bulls for 4 seasons. Coach Floyd is married to Beverly Floyd. She opened up to ABC 7 about the pressures of winning and how her family keeps it all together. They've been married nearly 50 years. Their wedding album was stolen, but the thieves never stole the magical moments they shared and the memories they continue to build. I don't know about basketball, Beverly Floyd said. I had 2 sisters. We danced and played the piano and did what girls do. She quickly embraced her new life as a coach's wife. Tim Floyd was working on his MBA at UTEP, and was a graduate assistant under Coach Don Haskins in 1978. Haskins was the first coach to start 5 African-American players in a title game for West Texas UTEP, the Bear, and was introduced into the Basketball Hall of Fame in 1997. Their only daughter, Shannon Floyd, was born on January 13th, 1981 in El Paso, Texas, USA. She's an actress known for Glory Road, 2006, Freshman Orientation, 2004, and At Last, 2005. Graduated from Vanderbilt and married to NFL linebacker with the Chicago Bears, Hunter Hillenmeyer, going on 30 years soon. Tim's dad, Lee Floyd, the winningest coach at Southern Mississippi with 246 wins and 147 losses. First coach to select a black basketball player, Wilbert Jordan at Southern Mississippi. Introduced into the Southern Mississippi Sports Hall of Fame in 1979, authored 2 basketball books. Lee died when Floyd was 18. That's a heck of a sports family, y'all. Coach played for Louisiana Tech, and his first assistant coaching job was UTEP under Hall of Fame Don Haskins from 1977 to 1986, won 4 Western Athletic Conference championships in those years. Head coaching jobs, 1986 to 88, Idaho, 88 to 94, New Orleans, 94 to 98, Iowa State, 98 to 2001, Chicago Bulls, 2003, 2004, New Orleans Hornets, 2005 to 2009, USC, the Reggie Bush football and O.J. Mayo basketball years, 2010 to 2017, UTEP, going 444 to 248 in his college career, 90 to 231 in his NBA career with the Chicago Bulls replacing Phil Jackson. Tough act to follow, right? And New Orleans Hornets went 41-41 in that one season. Okay, let's talk basketball and family.
Coach Floyd, hello. How are you today?
Doing great. Good to be here.
I'm so glad to have you here in studio. Kind of somebody I saw from way up in the bleacher seats on the field, but on the court. But you and I have this in common. Let's start here. For me, I was 6. Same year you graduated Louisiana Tech. Same year Elvis died and Star Wars came out, the first one, 1977. For you, you were 18. Your dad passed away. He was a great basketball coach, the winningest coach at Southern Mississippi. Did he teach you the game and give you the love for the game?
You know, he gave me the love for the game, certainly, but really didn't teach me the game. He was a fast break, get up and down, chuck and duck, played very, very fast, and then he died before I got to college. And what he did give me was just a great background in you could have fun in this business. He didn't want me to coach. He wanted me to be a lawyer or a doctor in those days. But he did give me some advice. I was 12 years old and laying on the living room floor in Hattiesburg, Mississippi. And we could only get the NCAA championship game on the radio. and this was 1966, and it was his alma mater, Texas Western College, was playing Kentucky. And he told me, he said, look, I don't want you to coach at all, but if you ever get an opportunity to coach, you should try to work for that coach in El Paso, Texas, because he's the best basketball coach in the country. And Texas Western, his old school, ended up beating Kentucky that night in the finals. And then, as fate would have it, 11 years later, I was working at the University of Texas, El Paso, which had been Texas
For the Bear.
Western. For the Bear, for
So
Don Haskins.
Don Haskins,
Yeah.
historic, and one of his claims to fame was 5-man starting team African Americans. Tell us about him.
Well, just a guy that, in those days, in the 50s, 60s, there were no African-American players in the Southeastern Conference. There were no African-American players in the Atlantic Coast Conference or the Southwest Conference, which was Houston, Texas, TCU, SMU, Texas Tech. And there was an unwritten rule when the blacks came into the University of Houston to start playing, that you could play 2 if you were at home. You could start 2. You could start 3 on the road, and you could play 4 if you were behind. And Don Haskins took the job in El Paso in 1956, and they were the first school to have African-American players in the state of Texas. And he was not there. He got there in 61, and he had a player by the name of Nolan Richardson on his team who ended up winning a national championship at Arkansas, and a couple of other African-American players. But he just decided that he was going to play his 5 best players wherever he could find them versus going with the unwritten rules of college basketball that were not talked about but were really the understanding of all coaches. And he said, I'm going to play my 5 best players, and they happen to be all black. And that game in which he beat Kentucky in 1966, the real significance of the game was not that Kentucky had a black player the next year and introduced a black to the Southeastern Conference, but it was that the Board of Trustees at Kentucky, this is what was told by CBS in a big documentary, that there were a couple of them that were worried about the black athletes dating the white girls at the University of Kentucky, so they had to fully integrate the school with black females. And then the next year, Alabama had a black player and black females. So that game really changed so many things other than just the significance of 5 blacks playing against 5 whites.
Unbelievable. I mean, really amazing story.
Yeah.
I was looking for other comparisons between you and I, since I'm not a basketball coach by any means, but we're both born in February. We were both Trojans, and once you're there, you're always a Trojan. And a lot in common besides being neighbors in Tennessee. But what was your favorite town to live in and coach? Let's see, you were in Texas, Idaho, New Orleans City, Chicago, or LA?
Or Ames, Iowa.
Okay, that's your favorite.
Ames, Iowa was in there also, yeah. Gosh, it's hard to call a favorite because when we got any job, we were just so elated to have that job at that time. To go live in El Paso was a real shock to my wife, who grew up in a little town, Ruston, Louisiana, where her dad was there for lunch and dinner every night, to going into this world of El Paso, which was different. But we loved El Paso, and great people, and really learned so much in the business. It was the foundation of my whole career because everything that I knew in the business came from Don Haskins, and because he had won a national title, I never felt like deviating from what I learned during those 9 years. Moscow, Idaho, little town, 12,000 people, 1 African-American in the town, and he had the Kentucky Fried Chicken place, okay? Went out of business. It was somewhat of a culture shock. Moscow, Idaho, 86 to 88 was kind of like life in the 50s, but there was a lot of great things about that. A great place for our daughter to start school. Just very innocent, small town where we could really just focus on career. and loved it. And I had a great staff there. I had Larry Eustacy, who went on to become a National Coach of the Year. He was 26. Kermit Davis, who went on to become a head coach, and Randy Bennett, who was 22 years old, who's the head coach at St. Mary's College. And Kermit did a great job at Ole Miss. So we got a good foundation there. New Orleans was fun, moving from Moscow, Idaho to the bright lights. And it was a great job because there were so many players in New Orleans. But Moscow, Idaho, I remember telling them at my first press conference that the arms and legs of our team, really, I'm not sure where they're going to come from, but the heart and soul of our team is going to be the Iowa athlete. Mm. And it was after a year I said, well, the arms and legs are going to have to come from someplace else because there were not many players in Idaho. So New Orleans was an easier job, but they were all great. They were all great.
And if Beverly was sitting here, Mrs. Beverly, what would she say was the best?
Beverly was the greatest coach's wife of all time. She just would plug in, make friends. She knew that it was a journey that she wanted to be a part of. She was excited every time we went into a place. She made it great for our daughter and our family. Example would be going to Ames, Iowa from New Orleans. Okay, a lot of gals probably may not find that real exciting, to move to a cold weather place. She'd never been there. But she said, hey, let's go. She said, I'm going to buy a coat. You buy a coat. Let's go. So we went. And she said, what do women in Iowa do? What do they do? And she decided that they like to bowl. So she'd never bowled in her life, and she bought a bowling ball and a jersey and just plugged herself right in and made some great friends. The bowling club became a lunch club later on. But she's still friends with all these gals from all these places where we live. So we've had a really interesting run.
That is great. That does sound like a wonderful coach's wife. So what was your favorite era of your coaching before the big salaries and big egos of today?
Favorite era? Mm-hmm. Gosh, the poorest we ever were was in El Paso, and from 77 to 86, but it might have been the most fun because you're learning, you're absorbing, you're studying, you're actually getting to go out and do things in terms of recruiting and putting a team together for the first time. I think first are always great, regardless of what period of life that you're in. But they were all just fabulous. I mean, I was so blessed with so many wonderful opportunities. There are great coaches everywhere. They're everywhere, all over the country. High school, NAIA, Division II. But it's the opportunities that you're given that create the path that you're on. And we just happen to have some opportunities that a lot of guys don't get.
Right. So I got to ask, because if I don't, people will be like, what the heck? You had to take the place of a legendary coach, Phil Jackson in Chicago, who himself had to fill in, when he took over. So what's your memories of the first day of experience? First day at the Bills, or first day at the Bulls?
First day at the Bulls, a lot of memories. And it's interesting that you asked that, because what I take from that is we won everywhere we were except for Chicago. And that's probably going to be the first line of my obituary, where we just got our brains beat in every night. But a lot of people have said that it may have been the most difficult job that any coach has ever walked into in the history of professional sports.
Yeah. Well, it's not just talent or skill or, all the learning that you just described that you had, but, in 1998, the offseason, the players of the Bulls championship team all retired or left. It was also the lockout season. Boom, double whammy. So you must have been really hard to get anything going. So you got the keys to the car of, this Ferrari, but no engine. So did Chicago treat you nice, or did they?
The people in Chicago were great. Jerry Reinsdorf was great. Jerry Krause and Jerry Reinsdorf gave me the opportunity, which I'm very appreciative of. Everybody was really wonderful. The media, took their jabs and their shots. They need to do that along the way, and they did. They certainly got them. In fact, I recall, walking out to the press conference, and it was packed and it was televised nationally. And I just kind of got through it. I just got through it for about 25 or 30 minutes. And I thought, okay, let me exhale here. And the PR guy said, okay, we're going to go in this back area here, this ballroom area. And now you're going to do individual sound bites with the media there. And I walk into this area and it's just packed with cameras, just packed from, it must have been 35 yards, 40 yards and wall to wall. And so I said, okay, let me just find the most, harmless looking person out there. And there was this young gal, she was about 27 years old. And I said, okay, you ready to get going? And she said, yeah, let's go. So first question she asked me, she said, how does it feel to be the most hated man in Chicago sports history? And I just looked at her and I said, well, I can't remember her name. I said, well, look, you and I just met. I said, do you already hate me? And so she couldn't run that. And she turned it off. And I said, look, I'm going to be here. I've got a 6-year contract. I said, is this how we're going to get started? You really want to do it this way? You're going to want...
It's all upside from there,
You're going
I
to want
guess.
some access here along the way. So she cut it off, but then it went straight downhill from there. But
The most hated man in Chicago, and you just got there.
that was the first question, yeah. But it was exciting times, they really were. And
did you when you were offered the job before? Obviously, could you even sit in the chair? Like, did you ever have any hesitancy? Like, I don't want to be the second guy. I don't want to be the John Adams to the George Washington. I don't want to be the Sarkeesian to the Pete Carroll. Like you had to know this is going to be difficult to keep that legacy, that dynasty going. And at a city like Chicago, this huge basketball town was going to be all on you.
Well, yeah, but the owner and the general manager had a press conference. We had a strike right after I took the job.
Yeah, the lockout.
Yeah, in June, and it went all the way to February.
Oh,
so we had 1 week from the time that the strike ended to resurrect a roster. They traded everybody or cut, Dennis Rodman, just right across the board. Just got rid of all of them. Steve Kerr, Judd Buechler.
Pippen and Jordan were gone.
But they said, Michael, we want you back. Michael said, I'm not going to go play with those guys. I'm not going to be coached by that guy either.
Although he did at the Wizards, but he must have had a change of heart later on.
Yeah. But he didn't want to be part of a rebuild, and he loved Phil, which I respected, because any player that is loyal to his coach, I think, is a wonderful thing. And it would have been so great to have had an opportunity to coach him. But the organization had won their 6 championships. They had the highest salary cap in the league. They felt like it was time to rebuild. And to give them credit, they had a press conference today. I took the job and said, look, we're not going to be very good. We've reduced our roster. We've gone from the oldest team to the youngest team in the league.
That was a big change, actually.
The highest salary cap team to the lowest salary cap team. Okay? So it's going to be difficult, and we're going to go rebuild the team like we built it in the early 80s when we drafted, Pippen and Horace Grant and the group, and brought them in. And so they said, we're going to take a step back and get the number 1 or 2 pick in the first round every year. So that's the way we proceeded.
Were you ever like, Phil, dude, what did you do? You left me nothing.
Well,
did you talk to him?
I'll tell you what I did do. Yeah, I spent that first year. He had stepped away for a year, and I went by his house probably 4 times, 5 times, and just visited. He was wonderful. It was really nice. He said, "You got no shot," and I said, "Why?" He said, "You've got to have players that have been in the league 5 to 9 years, and we were the first team to go young." Kobe and Kevin Garnett had just come out of high school, which started this wave of 18-year-olds. This was pre-one and done.
Right.
That all came out. The top 10 of the top 12 picks would be high school guys. So he said, you got to have guys who've been in the league 5 to 9 years. And he said their first contract years 1 through 4, they're going to be playing through their agent. going to be playing for numbers. They're going to be playing to get that second contract. When they get that second contract, 5 to 9 years, then it becomes about winning. And I don't know if that was the case. I mean, we just were not very good. And I take some responsibility for that. The longer you're with a team that's not very good, you're a part of it.
Yeah.
And I certainly was. But
and your daughter married a Chicago Bear. Do they treat her nicer being a Chicago sports family?
I think they did. Shannon did not meet her husband in Chicago. She met him in Nashville. Yeah, at Vanderbilt. Yeah, at Vanderbilt. And they both, love Chicago. They had a great time there. But that's why we're in Tennessee now, is because they're in Tennessee, and that's why we're living here.
Do they treat him as a Chicago hero, sports hero?
Yeah, they went to a Super Bowl, and he was a starting linebacker, and he had a great career. Hunter Hillenmeyer, and just a really good guy. We couldn't be more blessed than to have him as our son-in-law and the father of our grandchildren.
Three granddaughters.
3 granddaughters.
Are there more athletes coming up the
well,
Floyd
I don't know
chain there?
about that. They've got interest everywhere, and
young,
they're
still young. We can
a lot
see.
of fun. Yeah.
So
but our daughter did go to the University of Chicago, and after she left Vanderbilt. And she did a little acting career in between, but they're very happy here. And this was my wife's turn to decide where we're going to live, and so she said, "That's where we're going." And that's what I won't bore you with what I'm doing now because it's not very much.
We'll talk about that at the end, but that's the Nashville final destination you're talking about.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
Your daughter and LA is going to come into play here in a second.
Yeah.
But I'm sure the whole lockout thing, management couldn't have been too interested in getting great players back on the team, like what ultimately Steph Curry did, or another Jordan, I guess Kobe. But Phil got him at the Lakers.
Yeah.
So he had that year off. He goes there. You're sitting here with the engine that can't drive, and the Lakers go on to amazing things during that era. So you had to come up against them. Like, how did you function in that era of Phil 2.0?
With Phil at Los Angeles?
Trying to do the job of, let's just say, work with the GM, be coach of the Bulls, while Phil is down there in the Lakers kind of dominating everything with all the talent and all the money and all the...
Yeah. I think there was a great understanding at that time in Chicago that this is not the Bulls that we were aware of, and that this is going to take time, and the patience was preached over and over again to the fan base, and we were treated unbelievably well. We really were, and I can't look back on that era, even though the essence of what coaches do is you're trying to win games.
Yeah. So
you can be really happy if you're coaching in Guam, okay? If you got a really good team, if you got a really bad team. If you're coaching in a great city like Chicago, it can be very, very difficult. But we never really felt that from the fans. I think they understood where we were.
It was a transition year, so to speak.
But playing against Shaq and Kobe and those guys, and the other great players in the league, Reggie Miller, Karl Malone, Tim Duncan, Grant Hill, right across the board. It was eye-opening because we were not there at that time. And
what I find fascinating, and I wanted to get into it because you were there, eyes on. So we know what the Bulls did with Jordan and Pippen and Dennis Rodman. Then there was the year, very difficult. We talked about lockout. We talked about younger guys coming in. He goes to LA, and then you get what I would say would be the Shaq-Kobe rivalry that blew up that team too, right? I mean, so even legendary coach like Phil Jackson couldn't control these new era of rich dudes on the team, right? So you didn't have to deal with that. He did. What do you make of that? Like that, you saw the new era of Moneyball.
Yeah. Well, I think there's always, great players have always been great mentally. They can challenge you in a lot of ways. I've had great players. I would say it's safe to say we probably didn't have that at Chicago at that time, but I've coached some, through the years. But they'll challenge you, and there's the alpha dog thing that goes on within teams. Whose team is it?
Right.
I had to deal with that with the New Orleans
They always
Hornets.
talk about losing the locker room as a coach.
Yeah. But if you're winning games, none of those things really matter. A lot of finger pointing when things are not going well. But Kobe was coming into his own and becoming the guy that he is, and Shaq was the most dominant player in the league. So they had an opportunity to win most every night out, and I've heard that there was some friction there. I'm sure there was, but there's friction on every team. But my observation through the years has been is that noise really doesn't win. And you see noise on a lot of teams. I didn't see it with the Oklahoma City Thunder last year. There were just 8 guys that played all the time, that seemed to love each other, that played really, really hard.
Versus
with no
like a
distractions.
LeBron James, who seems to be kind of a drama queen.
Well, and I don't know how much LeBron creates that versus the attention that he receives from the outside. A lot of it just comes his way, and then they'll just take out that one sound bite, and then all of a sudden he becomes this or that. But I don't think he's necessarily asking for any more. He's had enough attention. But there are guys that just like noise. They like the branding element of it, and that doesn't seem to really win over the long haul. And I don't think LeBron's one of those guys. I think he's a winner. He's an older winner right now.
Okay. Well, I'm always fascinated by, where the head coach falls between management and labor, which is the players, especially these days. We just said LeBron, he seems to sell things more than show up to play. No coach could whip him into shape like the old days when you could actually tell an Idaho player, like, if you want to get better, listen to me. He does what he wants. Is the NBA kind of unworkable at this point? Salaries are too big. Coaches don't even get paid as much. Some do, but not all. And these guys do what they want.
I think the NBA would be – I think they have their issues right now. Style of play, I think people are turned off by all the threes, no post-ups, not playing through the post, not a lot of action going on, a lot of dribbling going on the court, not a lot of ball movement. They've got their issues, but I think it could still be the best league in all of professional sports if they would do one thing, and that's that: give the players a 1-year contract. If they had a 1-year contract, those guys would just, be eating each other alive on the court. There wouldn't be all the handshakes and the hugs after the game, all the dinners the night before.
Exchanging jerseys.
Yeah, exchanging jerseys, all of that. They would just be, can you imagine how hard they would play? And these are the greatest idea, and these are the greatest athletes in the world.
Talk about meritocracy. Like, you had a bad year, we're not going to pay you what you think because of 5 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah, but the money is crazy. But it's always been crazy. And they do deserve a big piece of it. But I think it'd be interesting if they had 1-year deals.
Newbies, I would do that for newbies. You're absolutely right. But their agents don't like that.
That's not going to happen.
No, the agents would be like, "Wait, you kidding me? It's 20 years. If you don't do it, we'll go to the other team that will."
Well, they'd say, coaches, you have to have a 1-year deal too, and I don't think I'd like that. So,
we'll have to move your family once a year for 50 years. Did you prefer college or pro?
I did prefer the college game because you practiced more. I felt more in control.
More hours per week, you mean, or?
Well, the NBA in those days, you'd play 4 games in 5 days or 4 games in 6 days.
So no time for practice.
So if there's 4 games in 5 days, you have a little 45-minute shoot around the day of the game where you're stretching for 15 minutes and you're, maybe putting up some shots, or maybe introducing a play that you're hoping they'll remember that night, or you're off. If 4 and 5 days, you're going to give them that 5th day off. 4 and 6, you're going to practice. If you got a young team, you're out there for an hour and 15 minutes, hour and a half, and not really enough to get a team better. You feel like you're having a bigger impact at the college level because you're practicing, 4 or 5 days a week. The other great thing about the college level I think John Calipari would tell you this, all the other guys, Leonard Hamilton, who was in the NBA, and Lon Kruger during those years, is that instead of signing one first-round draft pick, which you get in the NBA, you have an opportunity to sign 4 in college. Go out there and you're in charge of your own destiny a little more. Whereas in the pros, you're not making the roster decisions, or at least I wasn't. It's the general manager, and he's only getting the 1 pick a year. So very, very difficult. Once you go into the lottery in the NBA, it's generally a 6 or 7 year journey until you get out.
I never would have thought of that. That's good insight.
Yeah.
So you gave Iowa State in your first season with the Cyclones a then school record 23 victories and the second round of the NCAA tournament and their first NCAA Sweet 16 in 11 years. Mm-hmm. That was pretty amazing time, and that was Iowa.
Yeah. We enjoyed Iowa State. The best fan base in the country, 14,000 there every night. We had really good players. And guys that went on and played in the NBA, which really helps if you're coaching. Fred Hoiberg, who's played for me in Chicago as well. Marcus Fizer, who was a national runner-up player of the year, stole some really good players that became all-conference players. Kelvin Cato and Dedrick Willoughby, and a lot of great players. I don't want to get through it, but really enjoyable time and a wonderful conference.
And so now we're in this era of NIL and paying players and the portal. Mm-hmm. I feel bad for Andy Enfield at USC, took over for you, I believe, just as an example. Then that's the only team I really care about. But now college teams can't build a team or a dynasty except year to year, sort of like you said. Like they don't have a 1-year contract, but they leave. I think you famously said something like your players keep going to Dubai or something like that. Like you couldn't keep them long enough to mold them into something. Well,
yeah, in those days it was one and done and they were gone. 1 year in college and they're gone. And now it becomes, more about the NIL and the transfer portal, which means they can leave and play immediately wherever they want to go play. They're free agents every single year. It's professional sports.
And for some, in like 7 years, they can do this. Like
some guys have played 6 years, 7 years. There's a quarterback over here at Vanderbilt right now who's in his 6th year and maybe lobbying for his 7th, next year. And when you think about it, the money they're making, how could they make that when they get out of college, right?
The NFL doesn't offer that,
Yeah. But the system's broken, and I attribute it to poor leadership that happened in the Mark Emmert days as the head of the NCAA. I think these conference commissioners who used to work in concert with each other and were worried about all 31 conferences are worried about themselves, not worried about the impacts of 105 scholarship players versus 85 scholarship players in football, what it means to a Louisiana Tech or a Southern Miss with their football programs. The TV money is driving everything. The NIL packages, you can't blame the kids for taking it, if it's there. But it goes back to leadership, and I think the answer may lie in that. Hey, what about a system where guys are signing 4-year contracts at X number of dollars? If we're going to have to pay them, they're going to do that, but you're not going to receive the money until after you graduate. Okay, or we'll give you 80% of the money after 4 years. We're going to put it in escrow. You get out. It's there for you to go on and go do what you want.
That seems to be the forgotten link for a lot of the players,
is
the graduation part. Yeah.
Well, I talked to a coach this summer who has a player. He's at his 4th school in 4 years. He's attempted 92 hours. And every time you transfer from a school to another school, those institutions do not accept all of the hours.
Right.
They'll say, hey, we don't need that.
Credits.
So 54 of the hours that he'd taken over out of those 92 were accepted at this institution that he was attending. So don't tell me that we have created a system for student athletes. I don't really want to hear that term student athlete anymore, because it's really not what it's all about right now. The conference alignments don't speak to students having the best opportunity to graduate. USC being in the Big Ten and playing Rutgers.
It's really
Maryland.
the same as what you said earlier about the high school kids like Kobe coming out, not even having to go to college because the talent was already there. So what they really just did is they just increased every college became an expansion NBA team, right? I mean, you're getting the money the same. It's almost the same as an amateur or first year is going to get. So yeah, they really blew that whole up. So what do you feel about NBA itself and the commissioner, Adam Silver, who took over for David Stern, and Adam's willingness to accommodate not only this money deal, but all this woke stuff?
The woke stuff in the NBA?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think people are not going to games to get lectured. They're not turning on the TV to get lectured.
Mm-hmm.
They really don't want to hear it. And it doesn't matter if you're on the right or the left. They don't want to hear it. They want to go watch their team win, period.
The athleticism, not the lecture. Yeah.
Yeah, they really are there for not the messaging on the in the end zone or on the jerseys. It's not like somebody's going to read something in the end zone or on a jersey that says "love each other" or whatever it is, and say, "Oh gosh, turn and love the person next to him." I don't believe that.
That was the game. Oh, I got this amazing life lesson. It's so awesome.
I think they got trapped though, Steve.
Why don't the coaches stop it?
Coaches are not in charge at the NBA level. Okay, they're not making those decisions. That's the NBA that's starting.
And they can't
that's in charge. The owners are in charge. But you say, why don't they stop it? Okay, a lot of this came in, during the social justice era where, regardless of people's stance on politics. But can you imagine if you're in marketing in the NBA and you're in a staff meeting with 12 people, okay? And somebody brings up and they say, I think we need to take that off the back of the end zone where it says, love each other or end racism or whatever it is, that person would be viewed as a bigot or a racist themselves.
Right.
So, I think it's going to be there for a while. Maybe some people really, really love it, but I contend, maybe it's because I was on the other side of it in coaching, that people really just care about their team winning,
right,
and that they get enough of that all day long elsewhere.
It's a lot like when you're online and you see all these ads on the side or the front, you kind of learn how to look through it and just ignore it. Like you don't see the Nike ad. It's there, but so if they have a cheerleader in Minnesota who's a man, or if they have...
Who went to Iowa State, by the way.
Well, what can you do? You weren't there. You didn't get to coach him. But like you said, love somebody in the end zone. You just ignore it. So it's almost virtue signaling, literally, and just causing grief. And so you said, like, people are like, well, I'm not even going to bother. It's just silly. So I wish they would come to their terms and say, you know what? Clear it all out.
Mm-hmm.
Let's get rid of that. But back to your career. So a very similar thing happened to you. It's kind of strange. I was doing the research and I said, what happened to you at SC and the Bulls is almost the same. Maybe this is obvious to you, but so you won 2009 tournament, right? Everyone, key starters, DeMar DeRozan, Taj Gibson, and Daniel Hackett all declared for the NBA draft on the same day.
Mm-hmm.
You were like, oh man, here it is again. Now what do I do? And then of course, OJ Mayo, burned us to the ground the same time like Reggie Bush did in 2005.
Mm-hmm.
So USC was like the Bulls of before in terms of early on in the era, because all this is, you can do everything they did now if you want. You can go to the NBA, it's fine. You can you can get paid even, like Reggie did and his parents. So what did you think? Like, here I am stepping right into it again.
Well, at SC, we had the opportunity to replenish with, if we lose 3 players to the NBA, go sign 3 more great players. So the difference with the Bulls was we got 1 first-round pick. Okay, one year we did get 2. But the age difference, 18-year-old first-round pick NBA playing against 35-year-olds, 33-year-olds, it's a real problem. It's a real problem. And
who had the advantage? The 33-year-olds or the 18-year-olds?
The 33-year-olds.
Okay.
The 33-year-olds. And in college, it was really everybody was going through the same thing. So, yeah, you'd have to reload and go do it again. College coaches have always had to reinvent themselves, and they're certainly going through a very, very difficult period of that right now with complete roster turnover every year. They're losing 11 out of 13 on their basketball teams. Some schools losing all 13. You're really lucky if you have 3 or 4 guys back from the previous year.
Yeah.
And it's just another period of adjustment.
So the era of a dominant dynasty type of college team.
It's going to be very those days are going to be over, I'm afraid. And again, it goes back to the portal and guys having the freedom to leave every year.
So you're kind of can't like the portal.
I think they ought to be able to leave once and sit out that year.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like they used to be.
Like the old days, yeah.
Portal is now like
and
trading
if your
cards.
coach gets fired or takes another job, you ought to be able to leave. The one assumption is that the national media likes to make all these guys on TV, Jay Billis and all these guys. Well, the coach can leave. The player ought to be able to leave. Well, a coach is an employee. The player is a student.
Right.
They keep using the term student athlete.
Yeah.
That's right. Okay. So I say, put it in escrow. 4 years later, here it is for you. Okay. And we'll let you go do your deal, but we're going to focus on the education part of it. I guess that's old school.
Yeah,
But the other assumption is that all these schools are flush in money, and they're not. Maybe the Power 4 conferences are, but the Tennessee Chattanoogas, the Elon colleges, the Richmonds, the St. Bonaventures, they're not. And they've got 13 other sports that the revenues are having to fund.
Yeah.
And so this whole idea of
we're seeing this with Auburn and Alabama right now.
Yeah.
They were dominant forever, but now they don't have the money to compete with a Michigan or a USC even, which is not doing so great. But in the old days, it's like the Yankees, right? They always have the top payrolls. They always get the best players, the judges of the world. How is a little team like Iowa supposed to compete in that over time?
Well, what I think is going to happen, and I could be wrong on this, but I believe it's going to happen, because the monies are out there across the board. Guys used to make decisions based on, I'm going to go to Ohio State and play football, or Alabama and play football. They've got X number of NBA players, X number of NFL players.
Tradition, history.
Yeah. The blue bloods,
yeah.
Kansas in basketball,
Sure.
Kentucky in basketball.
Duke, yeah.
Duke, North Carolina. But now, so they'd always sign 5 of the top 25 high school players in the country, 10 of the top 60 football players in the country. So they're always going to be good. And now, because money is being paid at Rutgers, okay, last year Rutgers had 2 of the top 5 freshmen in America in basketball. Those guys years ago would have said, I'm going to North Carolina. I'm going to Kansas. I'm going to Duke. They had 2 of the top 5 picks in the NBA draft. They were both freshmen. So it's going to even that out. I think the worst jobs, this is just my opinion, I didn't make it right. I think the worst jobs are these blue blood programs, unless they fund them at a blue blood level. Kentucky basketball, they were okay. They were losing players. Those kids I talked about at Rutgers.
Isn't this sort of
this year they went out and funded them. They funded it big time to a blue blood level. Kansas basketball.
This is what Oregon did. You know, you had Nike money that always wanted the championship, and they funded it to a point where they became blue bloods. They bought their way in.
That's right.
With a booster.
That's right. Exactly.
Which used to be illegal. Like in Tennessee, they put it in a bag of McDonald's bag and handed it across the table, and then they got in trouble for that. USC, Reggie Bush, they got put into the death penalty for all intents and purposes for a decade.
But see,
now it's all above board.
Well, see, now there's an opportunity for a Virginia Tech to say,
get a good big booster,
we're going to pay. We've got $5 million to spend in basketball. North Carolina's got $5 million to spend in basketball. We're going to give this high school freshman $2 million. And North Carolina's budget had run out because it's all going to be capped to an extent next year.
Once the money runs out.
Yeah, there's going to be, $20 million, $22 million coming out of the TV money that's supposed to be dispersed within each school. So it's going to be opportunities for a Virginia Tech or a whatever.
TV
Georgia
money
Tech.
is how Notre Dame has been able to stay successful, independent for all these years with
That's
NBC.
right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, and SC is not very accepting, back to kind of the day job as a job. They fired Lane Kiffin on the tarmac at 3 a.m. after a road loss, if you remember. That was, I believe, Pat Hayden, who was the athletic chairman. So with NIL, it must be even more ruthless. And you got this brand now, right? So the Big Ten, we don't even know who's playing next week, week to week in terms of history. Like, what to look forward to against UCLA. We have no idea what Rutgers is going to do to us. So how do you feel about, it was the Pac-8 in my lifetime, then the 10 and the 12, now the Big 18. They still call it the 10, but there's 18 teams. What do you think of all this? I mean, they, like you said earlier, they're supposed to be in the class.
Yeah. It's really, I just want to puke every time I hear one of these athletic directors or commissioners or the head of the NCAA talk about the student athlete, as if, we have so much integrity. That's all we're worried about is the student part of this game. So why did SC join the Big Ten and go play Maryland and
UCLA
Rutgers?
too.
How's their baseball team going to go over there and play Rutgers? We're going to go over there and play 4 days. How are they going to do the academics? Well, it's all online. So they're not in classes.
Oh.
These kids aren't going to class. They're online classes now. They are online classes.
So on the airplane, they can watch the little YouTube video or whatever.
Well, think about the relationships you had from a classroom in college that are still your friends today. I think they're missing out on all that other than their teammates. But, of course, their teammates are only there 7 months because, hey, Johnny, I love you, but, hey, look, I'm leaving Colorado State. I got a chance to go over here to Wake Forest. And then, hey, guys, Wake Forest, good to see you. I'm not going to unpack my bags because 7 months from now I'm leaving. I got a chance to go over here to the University of Minnesota. And so they don't have the relationship part, and they're not getting in the classroom either.
They're not roommates.
They're getting an education, okay? They're getting an education, but it's online. Yeah. It's online. That's all the classes are. So I think that's a problem. With the NIL, I think an issue that really isn't discussed enough is these coaches have been involved in the fundraising for the last 4 years.
Boosters, meetings,
Okay, and they're worried about what? Who's the most important person to a coach coming back the next year? It's him. I want to be back.
Yeah.
I want to be back. So I got to have players. So they're going out, and they'll meet with some wealthy alum. I know you might not like the idea of this, but we really need $250,000 to pay Johnny, from over here in Windsor, Ontario. I think we can get him to come down here, and he's a great player. Okay. So, we're going to do that for you this one time, coach. Give him the money. Johnny comes in. Okay. And Johnny doesn't want to go to class. He didn't want to go to class.
Right.
And now you got 11 other guys, 12 guys on your team are going, well, Johnny's not going to class. Then I'm not going to go to class. So what's coach got to do? Coach got to try to discipline Johnny. Okay, Johnny, we're not going to play you in this next game.
Right.
Which is what he should do. All right. Now the booster calls the AD and says, hey, look, I gave this guy $250,000. He doesn't have him on the court. I want him fired. Okay. I want him out of there. Okay. Yeah. You're having to listen to these guys that they took out of the business. We took the agents out of the business. They took the boosters out of the business. They're front and center with everything right now. So there are a lot of issues.
This is giving me flashbacks of Pete Carroll, right? Because he was coaching a winning football team, and he didn't know what Reggie Bush's stepdad and mom were up to during the day. He's trying to, X's and O's, and yet the news finds out, and he kind of gets to blame for, hey, coach, you're not disciplining your kids. You're not making sure they keep their noses clean. It's like, what am I? There's a catch-22. The press loved it.
Oh, yeah. Media loves that kind of thing.
But he suffered for
it.
Well,
Reggie's family lived down in San Diego, as I recall.
Yep.
And that was all agent-driven, which is what the whole deal is right now in college athletics. Did Pete know about the agent being down in the house in San Diego when he's 2.5 hours north? No. He didn't know. Okay? He didn't know. Now, the NCAA said, well, you should have known. Oh, really? You should have known. So Pete should drive down there every 10 days or 2 weeks, say, hey, where are y'all living now? Oh, the Bushes, y'all moved from this place to this place.
And not even the player, the parents.
And can you, oh, yeah, it's the parents. Yeah, and so can you imagine Pete going in and saying, hey, look, y'all just moved from this house to this nicer house. Do you mind me telling you how did y'all pay for that? Would that sound maybe racist at all to ask those questions?
Possibly,
yeah. very, very much so. And what do you mean asking me how
one
we
player,
paid for
right?
it?
120 more.
Well, 120 guys. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous what they went through.
So did the agents and the lawyers and the athletic departments kind of get together and say, all right, they're going to do this. We're hurting our legendary coaches and reputation. Let's make it legal. Like, is that what they kind of did? Is they said, we know you're going to do it. Let's just not make it under the table anymore. Let's just put it into the rule book where you can actually take money from a booster and a player now. We don't care.
Well, that's basically what's happened, but I don't think they got together and decided that. I think it was just all about the lawsuits and not standing up to the lawsuits. It all started with, what can we do for these student athlete committees? Well, hey, we don't want to practice, but 20 hours a week. Okay. Hey, we need an extra meal. My guys at the University of Texas, El Paso, between federal Pell Grants and the cost of, what do they call it? The cost of
tuition?
No, I don't know. The cost outside of what the normal college student gets, the NCAA allowed a check for like $2,100. Cost of housing, cost of living, cost of attendance. Okay, like to go to a movie or go to whatever,
like a per diem if it was a company. Yeah.
But they had $8,000 or $9,000 a year that was coming in legally through the NCAA process.
Sounds like a union.
But we didn't have a lot of money. The school didn't have a lot of money. And that was a real stretch, for all of our sports. And so it's become a feeder system, Steve, to where the mid-majors and the low majors are just feeding the high majors players. And I think so. And that's all driven from the top. The NCAA, I think, is worried about folding. I really believe that. I think they recognize that the Southeastern Conference can handle their own discipline within the conference. If a guy's cheating, they can handle that. They recognize that these conferences can put on the championships. They can put on the National Volleyball Championship. They can put on the National Softball Championship, delegate that to the Big Ten, and this one to the Mountain West Conference. So I think they're on their heels and are literally just allowing whatever those four major conferences want right now, and that's the way it is.
See, well, yeah, that was inevitable. So college basketball was in mourning following the shocking death of UMass and Brooklyn Nets' Mike Babel. I don't know if you know Babel, B-A-B-U-L. Mm-hmm. Had a heart attack, age 47. I remember thinking, like Phil Knight throwing chairs. You can't go on like that without having one. What's the stress like being in a position where you can't lose, no matter how good the competition is, or in your case, the starters leave? Someone's got to lose, right? Mm-hmm. One team wins, one team loses, but the stress for a coach must just be unbearable.
Yeah. Well, they basically are trying to fire you every year. The best year is the first year before you ever play a game. Everybody loves you and goes, we're with you.
Your perfect record, 0-0.
Yeah. To your first press conference, you say something that ticks somebody off, and then you lose a fan. Then the next press conference, you lose a fan. Then you lose a game. You lose some more. But I contend that stress is a great thing. I think it's a wonderful thing. I think what is bad is distress. And distress is the inability to handle stress. And I look at whatever, you're a financial advisor. Say the guy's got a restaurant he's opened up across town. Those guys are on day-to-day contracts. If a guy's got a restaurant, people got to walk through that door. If they don't, you can't pay your bills. we would sign 5-year contracts. That's not stress. Everybody else in this world is living with great, great, great stress. We're playing a game. It's intense. Practices are intense. They can drive you crazy. There's problems. You're angry all the time. That's pretty much why I got out. I stayed mad. But it was.
So you're talking about like Popovich gets a 5-year contract, so he doesn't have to be stressed because he's got 5 years of paydays.
Yeah, that's right.
Unless he doesn't care about 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years.
Well, they fire you after year 2. You know, they pay you for 3 more. You kiss them on the lips on the way out the door. You know, I mean that's the reality of it.
I see.
And so I don't think it's as stressful. Now, if you're 32-year-old, 40-year-old guy, and you got a house payment, you got 2 young kids, and you got a 4-year contract with a reassignment clause, we can have you go be the guy over here, you know, liming the baseball fields, you know, after we fire you. That's stressful. It's stressful. Yeah, sure, it's stressful. But you know, when you lose your job, you basically lose your occupation. In the old days, now the guys are recycling a little bit at the college level. You know, guy loses his job, hired someplace else. Those days, if I lost my job at Iowa State, I'd have been a JC coach at Coffeyville, Kansas.
Yeah.
You know?
The NFL does this. They rotate the coaches around even if they're losing.
Sure they do. Yeah, but it's very intense. I've never met a coach that's worth a darn that didn't have some level of intensity to him. There are a lot of things come your way from administration that you don't want to hear, that you get angry about, from your academic advisor, guys missing class, you're upset about it. You know, you got fans, you got, you know, saying things online, boosters, parents, other coaches killing you in recruiting.
Agents.
And then you walk out on the court, and then there's 3 officials. And you go, oh my gosh, look at these 3 guys. Oh, you know, so there's a lot of things that can just, you know, aggravate you and make you angry.
Ruin your day.
Yeah, ruin your day. But the night before I retired, it was 2 nights before, we had lost a game over at New Mexico State, and my doctor, trainer, had said, we want to take your blood pressure, and it was 220 over 130. And that was enough for me. And I just decided, you know, I loved it, loved what I did.
It's taking a toll.
Yeah. And but I wasn't going to let it kill me, you know, and saw where Bill Self just had his second set of stents put in at 63. You know, I hope he'll listen to his body. Fred Hoiberg, who played for me, had some heart valves replaced at Nebraska. It's across the board, but it's every walk of life. You know, life has its challenges.
Yeah. Only you have to do it in 4 periods, you know, day to day like that. I would be rough.
But look, I loved it. I loved every bit of it. It was fun.
I can sense it. As of October 2025, that's this month, 38 states in the U.S. have legalized sports betting in some form. This number also includes Washington, D.C. and Puerto Rico. States that don't: Alabama, Alaska, California, Georgia, Hawaii, Idaho, Minnesota, Oklahoma, South Carolina, Texas, and Utah. What do you think? Are you pro sports gambling or against it?
It's a real problem right now for in professional and college sports. 6 programs last year in college basketball I can speak to had gambling issues, players dismissed. Generally, a lot of them were lower major programs where they weren't getting a lot of NIL money, the players. So they're targets for the fixers to come in and say, hey, look, you're down here at Mississippi Valley State, and don't you think you ought to be making the money that guy's making over at Ole Miss? I've got a way for you to do it. We went through an issue at the University of Texas, El Paso. In fact, we were the first school ever that went to the FBI and said, we have an issue, versus the FBI coming to us and saying, you have an issue. And we had to dismiss 3 players who were betting on games. And that was 2013, 14. And today with the online and these guys can place them on the phone, and they're doing it through their friends. I think that it's a tremendous issue.
It is, and it ain't going away. In 2024, legal sports betting generated a record $13.71 billion in revenue, which was a 25% increase over 2023. We had Jonte Porter, an NBA banned for Toronto Raptors for life for doing it. Terry Rozier this year, federal investigators began looking into unusual betting patterns on a 2023 game involving the guard with the Charlotte Hornets. Malik Beasley, also this year, Detroit Pistons guard became. Don't they pay these guys enough to behave?
Yeah, they really do.
Can't they wait until they retire? Why?
And a lot of them are prop bets. And the prop bets are, Terry Rozier, I'm just throwing his name out there. I don't know the details. Let's use some other name. Anyhow.
Same scandal as Jonte Porter.
Yeah, it can be a friend coming to that pro player and saying, hey, look, you're making your dough, but if you don't score 10 points in the first half tonight, I'm putting a prop bet on you to not do that. I can make $25,000. Okay? So doing it for somebody else. It's going on college campuses with, and look, it's not just fraternities, sororities. All these kids that are packed in these stadiums, I don't know the percentage. I don't want to get crazy on it, but talking to the college students that I've talked to, it seems like everybody has got some action on a game. And that's what happened to us at UTEP. We had a couple players that bet football through a guy named Little Mike on the UTEP campus, who was working with a guy named Big Mike, who was mobbed up in Miami. They let him lose a little money in the college football season, then went to him in the college basketball, said, look, you can make this money back up, but we need for you to figure out a way for the old Miners to lose by 5 tonight or win by 5 or whatever. And it's a tremendous problem. And I think we're just at the tip of the iceberg. I mentioned 6 schools in basketball: Eastern Michigan, Fresno, who else? University of New Orleans, North Carolina A&T, Mississippi Valley, somebody else. And those are the ones we know about. Okay?
Yeah.
So
yeah, you can have a.
Of course, I went through it. I went through it in the NBA as a coach. We had the guy Donahue, the referee, who fixed our game, and I was in the. In fact, I'm still ticked off about it. We lost at Minnesota, and I kicked a ball in the stands, about 30 yards up in the stands after about the 15th awful call by this guy, Tim Donahue. And I got fined $30,000. Now I'm on fixed income now. I'd like to have that $30,000. In fact, Adam Silver, if you're listening, I think you need to send it my way. But he wrote about it in his book. And then it's my understanding that he also had one of our playoff games. And when I was with the New Orleans Hornets, we lost to the Heat in 7 games to Wayne Wade. And I'd like to know a little bit more about that. My memory's not clear on that, but somebody told me that he had one of those games as well. And I got fired after we lost that series 4-3. So anyhow.
So it had real world repercussions, obviously, but somebody got paid.
It's out there. But look, I want to say this. For the fans that are watching games, well, that NBA game, that's fixed. And look how they let them come back in there and do this and that, or that call. No, players are not fixing games. They're not. There's not. You can't do that. The outcomes aren't fixed by the NBA, this NFL crew or that's working the game, whatever. No, it's pure. Some players are not as good as other players. Some teams are not as good. But just because you lost some action on your bet doesn't mean that there's a big rig system that's going on. It's not happening.
Yeah. And I guess coaches are not teaching these kids like about Pete Rose, where if you get caught doing this, you could have your entire reputation of all these wonderful records and scores.
Steve, they are bringing them in, though. Coaches and the NBA, they're doing the professional sports, college sports. They're bringing an FBI agent in, and they're talking to these teams.
Oh, that's good.
And they're saying, hey, guys, okay, look, we're gonna be watching all the
some
trends.
bad apples, like I listed, just don't get it.
That's right. That's right.
It's more important. How are we doing time? Okay. Oh, all right. So we're gonna wrap it up here. I wanted to get into China and TNT canceling, getting out of there. Any thoughts on that? We got Larry O'Brien or Stern. They were so willing to let these guys act out. I remember Chicago Bears quarterback Jim McMahon. He had controversy with Pete Rozelle. I had never even thought of a commissioner of NFL in the old days, but now it seems like they're so C-suite driven with all of the Black Lives Matter and the LGBT stuff. You mentioned it, but TNT they canceled them so that they can go to ABC, Disney, NBC, and Amazon Prime for this next season. That's like China, $76 billion, 11 years. Like you said, that's a long, they can screw up all they want for 11 years and they're getting get paid.
Yeah.
What does that say about the future of basketball?
Well, I think people are tired of some of these guys speaking out, players speaking out, coaches speaking out about China and defending China when you've got the Uyghurs and you've got all of the issues that are going on with human torturing, suffering.
Making the shoes and the jerseys.
Oh yeah. It's going on in China and defending China. There's a lot of selling out that's going on in that league, without a doubt. You see why. The numbers are huge. But I just hope that, the product gets better. The product, to me, is the big issue right now. Is the games are getting harder and harder to watch. Nobody wants to go out there and see somebody shoot 75 threes in a ball game, and watch guys just dribble the cover off the ball, all game long. It's really gotten hard to watch. So I wasn't even aware of all that because I'm really not paying as much attention anymore. I'm trying to enjoy retirement.
They've lost you. They probably lost half the country, that's for sure. So you were inducted into the Louisiana Basketball Hall of Fame in 2014, 127-58 over 6 seasons. NCAA tourney 91, 93, 3 NIT trips, 20-win season, 4 conference championships. What would your dad say about that, Rick?
Well, I think he'd have been proud of me. I think he would have. He'd probably, he probably would have been. It'd have been nice to get a pat on the back. I'm sorry I didn't get a chance to watch it.
Would he say, I shouldn't have told you not to do it because you did good, son?
Well, I don't know. I don't know. Wish he was around.
What's next for you? Any big plans? Write a book? You're a granddad. Any future basketball stars in that family or anything?
I don't know. These gals, they sure don't want me to work with them. My 3 granddaughters. It's like, I'll say, do y'all want me to go out there? Can I work with you? No, we don't want any part of it. Okay, so nothing there. But no books. No, I don't. Shoot, you'd have to have somebody want to buy it. And I don't think there's anybody want to buy the thing.
I believe they would. If they're going to make a Wooten movie, they would.
No. I just no. There's no reason to do all that. I'm just enjoying life right now and seeking peace and trying to be a good granddad and do a little fishing, play a little golf, and plant a few plants along the way and. I need to exercise more, but it's been great, and I'm glad I got out when I got out.
Well, that is the happily ever after in overtime. Well, Coach, thank you for your time. We are at the end here, so I don't think you do the social media. You don't have a book, but anything that people can follow to learn more about you or Wikipedia?
No, really isn't.
Okay.
There's a new era out there that they can go follow. Yeah, but we're just doing our own deal. In fact, I still don't have an email address after all these years. So
probably for the best.
Made it this long, I think we'll be okay.
All right. Well, thanks again for coming on with us. It's great to know you. Great to meet you. Hold on, folks. I will be right back.
If country ain't country, then this ain't gonna work. Oh, there ain't no gold in this new Nashville dirt.
Thanks for coming back. It's that time to remind everyone to please subscribe to heartlandjournal.com. That's how we grow and keep this content free for you. Now, the Heartland Journal News. This actually comes out today. You can get it in your inbox if you subscribe at HLJ.com, but here you go. Rising Tide of Hostility by me, Steve Abramowitz, my newest Friday contribution to the website. You can find them all under Journal Entries tab, by the way, lots of them at this point. In the United States, a nation founded on principles of religious freedom, Catholic churches have increasingly become targets of vandalism, arson, and other forms of destruction. Since May 28, 2020, coinciding with the nationwide unrest following the death of George Floyd, there have been at least 521 documented attacks on Catholic churches across 43 states and the District of Columbia. Did you know this? These incidents range from graffiti and smashed windows to severe acts of arson that have razed historic buildings to the ground. According to tracking by Catholic Vote, a faith-based advocacy organization, the results have not only persisted but escalated, particularly after the May 2022 leak of the Supreme Court's draft opinion in Dobbs v. Jackson, Women's Health Organization, which overturned Roe v. Wade. Since that leak, 355 of those attacks have occurred, many featuring pro-abortion messages scrawled on church property. The surge in attacks reflects deeper societal tensions, including anti-Catholic sentiment, political polarization over issues like abortion, and broader cultural shifts. While some incidents stem from random vandalism, others appear motivated by ideological opposition to the church's teachings. The U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops has independently documented at least 360 such incidents since May 2020, corroborating the pattern with reports of arson, beheaded statues, defaced gravestones, and burned American flags. Despite federal laws protecting houses of worship, arrests have been made in only about 30% of cases, raising concerns about inadequate law enforcement response. The timeline begins in late May 2020, amid protests and riots sparked by George Floyd's death in Minneapolis. Catholic Church's symbols of institutional authority to some were not spared. Initial incidents included smashed windows and graffiti, but arson quickly emerged as a devastating tactic. By the end of 2020, 60 attacks were recorded. The following year saw 83 more, with a sharp increase to 143 in 2022 following the Dobbs leak. This pattern continued: 108 in 2023, 86 in 2024, and 41 so far in 2025. Geographically, the attacks were widespread but concentrated in certain states. California leads with 69 incidents, followed by New York, 60, Pennsylvania, 36, Texas, 26, Florida, 23, New Jersey, 20, Ohio, 18, Oregon, 18, Colorado, 17, and Massachusetts, 16. Urban areas like New York City, 47 attacks, and Los Angeles, 27, have become hotspots, suggesting a correlation with population density and political activism. Many assaults occurred under cover of night, with perpetrators using accelerants like gasoline to ignite fires, often targeting sanctuaries, altars, or historic structures. Arson represents one of the most severe forms of these attacks, causing millions in damages and endangering lives. Here are some documented cases where Catholic churches were burned or subjected to arson attempts since May 2020, illustrating the human and cultural toll. One early and brazen incident occurred on July 11, 2020 at Queen of Peace Catholic Church in Ocala, Florida. A man drove a minivan through the church doors, poured gasoline in the foyer, and set it ablaze while parishioners prepared for Mass. The fire caused extensive damage, but quick action by congregants prevented injuries. The perpetrator was arrested and charged with attempted murder and arson, citing resentment toward organized religion. In November 2020, Sacred Heart Catholic Church in Brewster, Washington, fell victim to an apparent arson attack. Flames engulfed the building, destroying much of the interior. This rural church served a small community, was left in ruins, forcing parishioners to hold services in temporary spaces. Investigators linked it to a wave of similar fires in the area, though no arrests were made immediately. This year, 2022, brought more destruction that year. On June 25, 2022, St. Coleman Catholic Church in Shady Springs, West Virginia, a historic structure built in early 20th century, was burned to the ground in a suspected arson. The fire erased a community landmark with losses estimated over $500,000. Local authorities investigated, but the motive remains unclear, though it coincided with heightened anti-Catholic rhetoric post-Dobbs. Just days later, on June 30th, 2022, St. Anthony of Padua School in Lorain, Ohio, afflicted with a Catholic parish affiliated, suffered an arson fire causing $1 million in damages. The blaze targeted classrooms and administrative areas, disrupting education for hundreds of students. A suspect was later arrested, but the incident highlighted vulnerabilities in church-affiliated institutions. Arson continued into 2023. On May 23, 2023, a woman set fire to the outdoor chapel of the Shrine of Our Lady of Guadalupe in Des Plaines, Illinois, a popular pilgrimage site. The flames damaged religious statues and structures, but the shrine's significance amplified the emotional impact of the faithful. The perpetrator was arrested and charged with arson. August 2023 saw multiple fires. On August 8, 2023, the desecrated Sacred Heart Catholic Church in Wounded Knee, South Dakota was destroyed in a suspected arson. The site, tied to Native American history, represented a loss of cultural heritage. Days later, on August 9, 2023, St. Rose Catholic Church in Sacramento, California had multiple areas set ablaze, leading to a hate crime charge against the suspect. On August 31st, 2023, fire started in a dumpster at St. Joseph Catholic Church in Salem, Oregon, spread to the roof and sanctuary, causing significant damage. A suspect was arrested for arson. In 2024, the trend persisted. On March 28, 2024, a man ignited the interior of Our Lady of the Lake Catholic Church in Verona, New Jersey, causing smoke and fire damage. He was taken into custody at the scene. June 9, 2024, brought arson to St. Jerome Catholic Church in Maplewood, Minnesota, where an American flag and keyboard were set on fire inside. This incident, investigated as arson, occurred amid broad hostility, including a recent mass shooting at another Minnesota Catholic church. On June 13, 2024, the rector at Christ the Divine Parish in Monroeville, Pennsylvania, was torched badly, damaging the priest's residence. Recent cases include October 16, 2024, when Incarnation Catholic Church in Orlando, Florida, suffered its second fire in 16 months, with flames set at the altar in a temporary location. On October 23, 2024, St. Mary's Catholic Church in Franklin, Massachusetts, experienced an intentional fire causing smoke damage throughout. These examples underscore the physical and psychological harm. Historical churches lost, communities displaced, and faith tested. Damages exceeded $35 million in some estimates, but the intangible costs, fear among worshipers, and erosion of sacred spaces are immeasurable. The attack raised alarms about religious intolerance. The attacks, advocacy groups like Catholic Vote and the Family Research Council note a broader rise in hostility toward faith communities, with 415 church attacks across denominations in 2024 alone. Critics argue the federal government has been slow to respond, despite laws like the Freedom of Access to Clinic Entrances Act, which protects places of worship. Letters to the Department of Justice in 2021 and 24 went largely unheeded, with no federal prosecutions reported. Some link the violence to anti-Catholic bias rooted in historical prejudices, exacerbated by modern debates on abortion and social issues. The low arrest rate, 30%, suggests under-prioritization, allowing perpetrators to act with impunity. In response, church leaders urge vigilance, enhanced security at a big cost, and community solidarity. Parishes have installed cameras, hired guards, and fostered interfaith dialogues. Yet, the persistence of these attacks challenges America's commitment to religious freedom. As a nation grapples with the division, these 521 incidents serve as a stark reminder: when sacred spaces burn, so does the fabric of society. Protecting them is not just a Catholic concern, but a cornerstone of American values. That is it for this episode. Thank you, Coach Floyd, for a great discussion on keeping your faith and joy of sports while working in the cutthroat industry of a head coach. Man, what a pressure cooker. It hasn't gotten any easier since your time. Biggest difference then and now is a guy like Coach Greg Popovich. Salary from his 2023 contract extension with the San Antonio Spurs was $16 million per year. This was part of a 5-year, $80 million deal that made him one of the highest paid coaches in the NBA. For that much, I'd put up with a lot of bad press. He retired this year, by far the longest tenured coach in all major U.S. sports leagues. He earned just over $200 million during his nearly 3 decades as coach of the Spurs, per Sportico. Ranks second behind Steve Kerr of the Golden State Warriors. Both love China a lot. There was always a lot of turnover on NBA sidelines, but the past season saw 3 of the 5 longest tenured coaches end their reign. In March, the Memphis Grizzlies fired Taylor Jenkins, and Denver Nuggets coach Michael Malone was fired less than 2 years after he led the franchise to its first NBA title. That's gratitude for you. This is goodbye for now. I'm your host, Steve Abramowitz, editor-in-chief of HeartlandJournal.com. See y'all next time. Peace in our time, and definitely glory to God. Fight on.
If it's good, we win it all. If it's in, we win the conference. If it's even close, I'm going to McDonald's. Close enough.
Great savings are as close as your local McDonald's. Choose from 4 delicious extra value meals with large fries and an icy Coca-Cola, just $2.99 each.
If it's in, I'm Coach of the Year. Must be that Hilton magic.
Have you had your break today?
Tim Floyd remembers well. The most fun he's ever had coaching was his 6 years at the University of New Orleans. And it shows. From 1988 to 94, Floyd led the Privateers to a 126-59 record, winning 4 regular season conference championships, 2 NCAA tournament bids, and 3 more to the National Invitational Tournament. Very impressive, considering Floyd's first UNO team was a major rebuild with no returning starters and no current starter taller than 6'5" on the roster. What that team lacked in height, they made up for in heart, hustle, and talent, which they put on display when little, unheralded, UNO stunned everyone by winning a season-opening tournament in San Marcos, Texas. The Privateers went on to finish that season with 19 victories, including a home upset of 12th-ranked Florida State, an American South Conference regular season championship, and an NIT invitation. To build on that first year's success, Floyd relied on coaching and recruiting. Tim Floyd felt UNO was his field of dreams, an urban job in a city loaded with talent. The relatively new Lakefront Arena would entice talent, then coaching would take over. Floyd's most notable recruiting success was Irvin Johnson, an unrecruited 6'11" center that he developed into the Privateers' only NBA first-round draft pick in 1993, as well as a Greater New Orleans Sports Hall of Famer. Irvin Johnson credits Floyd for taking a grocery store worker with almost no basketball experience and coaching him into a man who played 13 NBA seasons. In Floyd's college coaching career, he had 13 teams reach the 20-win mark. His winningest came in the 1992-93 season at UNO when the Privateers were 26-4, undefeated in the Sun Belt Conference at 18-0, and ranked 17th in the nation's final regular season Associated Press poll. Floyd proudly boasted of that 26-4 team making 10 more free throws than its opponents attempted, admitting that ratio doesn't happen a lot, but emphasized its importance when it does because you're getting opponents in foul trouble and giving your team a chance to score with the clock stopped. It means you got a pretty good team, he said. Tim Floyd's coaching philosophy emphasized defense, rebounding, those free throws, and composure on the road. A formula for success that 5 times saw Privateer teams ranked among the top 25 in the nation in scoring defense. They won nearly 2/3 of their conference road games, and the 1990-91 team led Division I with a 9.1 rebound margin. Besides UNO, Floyd coached at Idaho, took Iowa State to the Sweet 16, which eventually brought him to the NBA Chicago Bulls and New Orleans Hornets. He returned to the college game for stops at Southern California and UTEP. Tim finished with 444 victories in 24 seasons as a college head coach, and his best winning percentage, .681, was at UNO. His college teams produced 20 winning seasons, but those 6 at UNO, he feels, were 6 of the best and most fun of his coaching life. Welcome to the All-State Sugar Bowl's Greater New Orleans Sports Hall of Fame, Class of 2020, University of New Orleans basketball coaching great, Tim Floyd.
I wish I would have met you. Now it's a little late. What you could have taught me, I could have saved some face. They think that your early ending was so wrong. For the most part, they're right, but look how they all got strong. That's why I say, hey man, I shot. Good shot, man. That's why I say, hey man, I shot. Good shot, man. I've been dreaming of the wild, wild plains, walking where the pine trees dance.
Heartland Journal Podcast is the media property of heartlandjournal.com, where you can find news stories, commentary, and content serving the heartland of America. Any views or opinions represented on the podcast are personal and belong solely to the creator and do not represent those of the people, institutions, or organizations that the creator may or may not be associated with in professional or personal capacity unless explicitly stated.